In this lecture, we're going to be learning how to paint translucent objects. So a translucent object is just something that is almost see-through, but there's sort of particles within that object, like color tints and stuff like that, that basically stop some of the light from getting out of it, and it bounces around within that object. And sometimes some of it gets spit out in the shadow, but you'll see what I mean here in a second. So the first thing we want to do is let's go ahead, let's add a new layer, and let's make that a clipping layer mask. So I'm going to come up to layers, create clipping layer mask. So now we can paint within that, and it's not going to disturb anything on the outside of our circle. All right, so now we want to go ahead and pick a color. So for our color, let's go ahead and let's grab sort of a purplish red color, and let's keep it pretty dark. So maybe somewhere right about there. Let's go ahead and fill that, see how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe just a slight bit darker. Maybe that's a little bit too dark, so I'll lighten it up a bit. All right, something like that. Next, let's go ahead and let's create a dark spot. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this down so we get a lot darker of a value. Then using my brush tool, and we want to make sure that we're using a brush with a soft edge, let's go ahead and let's just paint in a darker area right here, because our light source is up here at the top. So we're going to have a reflection right in this area. And basically the area right behind that reflection is going to be really dark, because that's where the light is not going to get trapped. There's not going to be any light in this area, so it's going to be the darkest part. Something like that looks good. And maybe we can darken that just a bit more and just add a little dark spot right there in the center. All right, great. Next, let's go ahead and let's add in another layer. We'll drag that beneath this layer so it automatically turns into a clipping layer mask. Drag that back up. And then let's decide what color our highlight is going to be down here. So our highlight is where all the light is being trapped within our sphere. So it's a clear sphere, and there's going to be light trapped down here. So let's go ahead and let's drag this. Let's actually just keep it about where it is. Let's just brighten it up. So I'm going to bring it up to about there. Keep it nice and saturated. And we're just going to paint in an area down here at the bottom like this. Maybe we can make that a little bit more red. Great, that looks good. Let's go ahead and just paint in this bottom area and just kind of let it fade like that. Awesome. Then let's go ahead and let's grab an orange. So we can work within the spectrum of purple to red to orange, because basically when you go into a translucent area, the lights they kind of get more saturated and a little bit warmer. So let's come into our oranges. Let's paint some orange in there. Let's brighten that up. That. I'm gonna go ahead and reselect this sort of purplish pink color and kind of paint up into here a little bit. Then let's go ahead and reselect this orange, and let's get an even brighter version of it, and maybe a little bit more of a yellow version. Let's paint in a little bit lighter of a highlight. Maybe we'll bring it over a little bit more desaturated so we're closer to the white. Something like that. I think we're getting a little bit too far away from the orange, so I'm going to bring that back down to the oranges and paint that back in. Something like that. Let's reblend it with this color. All right, great. So now we're starting to get a good base for our marble. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be marble, but in this case, it's going to be a dark reddish purple marble. All right, next, let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to get more of a saturated orange in here. Maybe saturate that a little bit more, and I'm going to paint a little bit more orange in here, like that. Maybe bring it up a little bit more, because we want this part to be really bright. Maybe I'll grab a little bit more of a orange yellow. And then maybe I should saturate this purplish color out here a little bit more. Maybe bring it up in brightness and also paint that in a little bit right there. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, next, let's go ahead and we're going to erase out kind of a dark edge around the sphere. So on this layer, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead, let me just touch this up real quick. We're gonna go ahead and take our eraser. We want our brush to be pretty small. We still want to use a soft edge brush, and we're just going to basically erase out a dark ring around this so that the dark color behind it shows through. Now you can do this in little small sweeps. You don't have to do it in all one big stroke. You can just do little marks and lines a little bit at a time and just erase that out so you can control the curve a little bit better. something like that. And then let's go ahead and come back down to our main color layer. And what I want to do is I want to lighten up this ring. So if I paint in behind back here, whoops, switch to my brush, you can see that I can lighten that up if I select this pinkish color over here. And I'm just going to lighten it up down here. And as it starts to touch that pink color, I'm going to go ahead and let it go back to dark. Something like that. And maybe I can actually brighten that up just a little bit more. So I'm going to drag that up and just really brighten up this line down here. Then I'm going to come back up here to this top orange layer. I'm going to reselect this orange color, maybe drag it a little bit lighter and a little bit more towards the whites. And I'm going to paint in a little bit of a reflection highlight down here. Like we've talked about before, most of your reflections show up around the edges. You don't see things in the center. Just something like this. Maybe I got that up a little bit too high, so I'll go ahead and take some of that pink color and kind of paint that back down. Clean up that eraser edge. All right, great. So that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and add a new layer. Let's turn it into a clipping layer mask and then make sure it's on top of all of our layers. And we're going to paint in the reflection of the sky now. So the sky tends to be kind of a blue color, so we're going to grab kind of a bluish gray color. So I'm going to come over here. We want it pretty bright. Let's try something like that. Let's come down into our blues. Maybe make that more saturated. Something like that looks good. Then using our brush, we can just go ahead. We're going to paint in a soft edge around like this, just kind of like a halo, just like that. And if it's a little bit too opaque or a little bit too dark, like I'm doing right now, that's okay, because we can always come back and lighten up this layer with the opacity. And what this is basically just a reflection of the sky around it. And we want this to be kind of fat and thick, and we also want it to have a slow gradient fade into the rest of the sphere, like that. Then let's go ahead and come into our opacity, and let's bring that down a little bit. Something right about there will probably be good. Let's come back to our color layer, and I just want to add a little bit of a darker area within here, so I'm going to come down in darkness. I'm just going to paint in a little bit darker area right there. All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's work on our reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new layer, and I'm going to put this on the top so it's above all of our other layers, and then I'm going to switch to sort of a purplish pink light color, so it's almost white but not completely. And what we want to do is we want to paint in a reflection just right up here at the top. And we also want to, we can use a soft brush for this part, but then we want to switch over to a hard edge brush to paint in the final reflection. So just kind of like that. You can see that we kind of have a translucent ring, and then we have an opaque white circle like that. And we can even take our transform tool and we can squish this a little bit like that, because of perspective, this reflection wouldn't actually be a perfect circle because it's kind of on the top of our surface. So something like that. Now I'm going to come back down to my blue layer, and I'm going to use my eraser, bring up the brush size. I'm going to bring the opacity down to about 30% so I can just lightly erase out behind it, because I want that to kind of stand out a little bit more. So I'm just kind of erasing out that blue reflection. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, I think down here it's looking a little bit too saturated. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this color. I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. Come back down to my main color, and I'm just going to kind of desaturate this out a little bit more. See how that looks. That looks okay. I'm going to undo that, maybe make it a little bit more saturated. Maybe just paint a little bit lighter with it. I just want to kind of pull some of that saturation out. Same with on this orange and red layer. So I'm going to go ahead and select this color right here. I'm going to go ahead and desaturate it a little bit. Not a whole ton, just a little bit. And I'm just going to lightly kind of desaturate those colors by just pressing very lightly. and painting over that. All right, that looks pretty good. Next, I want to kind of create a harder edge right here on this highlighted area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to this layer, and I'm just going to take an eraser, and I'm just going to kind of erase that out a little bit so we get more of a hard edge there. Make sure you bring your opacity back up on that. Just kind of like that. And then I think we need to darken this back here. So coming back to this layer, I'm going to go ahead, take this color, and I'm going to paint in, whoops, let's make sure that we're back to a soft edge brush. And I'm just going to paint in a little bit darker down here, like that. And that kind of gives us a harder edge, which can happen in a translucent object. So what we have going on here is we have this dark area up here where the light is not bouncing around. There's no light up there. It's all coming through into this area. It's bouncing around down here, and then it's going to come out into our shadow. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and create a shadow for this. So let's add a layer underneath all of this on its own. And then using my marquee tool with an ellipse, I'm going to go ahead and drag out an ellipse like that. Then we can go ahead and let's fill that in with the darkest purple. So I'm going to fill it in with this dark purple right here. And actually maybe not the darkest purple, maybe somewhere in between these two dark purples. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in because the light is going to travel through this and then it'll come through on the shadow. So the shadow is going to have some color in it. And then down here in the center, we're going to have this lighter orange color. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and select this. Let's start with this red color first. And then using our soft edge brush, we'll go ahead and we'll paint this in. We want to leave the edges nice and dark. So it's kind of a copy of what we see on the actual sphere. So we get dark edges, and then we also have these lighter inner parts. Then let's go ahead and select this light orange color. And then we can paint in a light orange center, like that. And we can even select this lightest orange color, bring our brush size down, and paint a really light orange part right there. All right, perfect. Next, let's go ahead and come up to our filters, and we want to blur this out. We don't want that sharp of a shadow. So we'll come to blur. Then we'll select Gaussian blur. And then we can just go ahead and drag this around until we like it. You can control how blurry you want it to be. It's really up to you. So I'm going to put mine at about, let's say about 14.8, something like that. Go ahead and hit OK. And then we can go ahead and take our opacity and bring that down a little bit so we can see the table through it. We could even play around with a couple different layers. We could try like multiply, for example. That looks pretty cool. So maybe we'll just leave it on multiply. But you can see that the shadow is a lot different than previous shadows we've done because the light actually travels through and bounces out where the shadow is. All right, let's zoom out and see how this looks. I think that looks pretty dang good. All right, that brings us to the end of this lecture. So just remember that when you're painting translucent objects that they're kind of tricky because the light bounces around, but what you want to remember is basically wherever your light source is. So if your light source is up here, your reflection is going to be there as always. And then right behind that is going to get really dark because the fact that that's where the light is not bouncing around within that form. And then down here at the bottom, the light will travel through to this bottom surface. It'll bounce around down here, and then it'll kind of spit it out into the shadow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next lecture.